let's get right to it. So I just got through watching the Vince McMahon documentary, Mr. McMahon. That's on Netflix. I'm here to tell you right now. If you hadn't seen it, there's no rush. It's something to watch on a Sunday. Boring, ain't nothing really going on. Probably pop it in, take a couple of naps through it. It's nothing to be like, whoa. Don't get me wrong. Some of the stuff that was coming out of Vince's mouth, I was like, ew. But for the most part, I knew all of this because I'm a wrestling fan, right? I watch the documentaries on WWE TV. I watched some of the documentaries that was on USA or A&E, Legends and Rivals. All of this stuff has been touched on. You didn't learn anything except Vince McMahon is all about the business. He is a businessman. Nothing personal. Everything business. That's really it. To the point where it seems cold. It seems awful. It seems rough and terrible. The decisions that he was making, all for the business. And everybody was on board, as usual. And no one had nothing to say. And everybody was tiptoeing around the questions because this documentary was made before he got put out of the entire shebang. So he was still the boss while this documentary was being made. Now, guys like Tony Atlas, thank you for having Tony Atlas on this documentary. He is probably the only person that actually gave a real opinion and kept it all the way live. Outside, if you want to say Dave Meltzer and this other guy that people are upset about with the glasses, the skinny dude with the glasses. But it was the usual suspects: Booker T, John Cena, The Undertaker, The Rock, Trish Stratus. Who am I missing? Bruce Pritchard, Paul Heyman. That was really about it. And then Vince McMahon popped in. But it was more of a history of WWE. So let's run through it real quick. First episode, episode 1. Vince McMahon follows in his father's footsteps and takes the family business from the independent wrestling circuit to the mainstream sports media, sports entertainment. Why is this important? Because when we get to talking about the WCW and the Monday Night Wars and stuff, Vince McMahon is tender and he feels some kind of way because WCW is beating him and Ted Turner is hurting his feelings. But when he took the business from his dad, he basically did the same thing. He poached big stars from all of the different territories. His pops wasn't down for that, and he did it anyway. That's what made his pops proud. A little backstory on Vincent that we learned: he was abused by his stepdaddy. He alluded in a couple of articles that they touch on in Playboy, and there was another article that there was some sexual abuse with his mother. Okay, then at 12 years old, he ended up with the pops. They didn't tell you why he ended up the pops. Did he get removed from the home? Was Child Protective Services called? Nope. He just ended up with his dad, who was running the WWF in the upper northeast territories. Okay, that was it. His dad took him under his wing, showed him what was going on, how the business was working while he was going to school and doing all these things. He met Linda McMahon when he was 16. They ended up getting married when she was 17 years old. I mean, that was really all you got. Then, of course, they had 2 kids or whatever. So, you kind of got a small, tiny glimpse into his background as a young Vincent McMahon, okay? There was abuse, incest, physical abuse, sexual abuse. All of that was left behind when he moved with his dad. He tried to get his father's favor, and it took a lot to get his father's favor. Hold that thought. Keep that. Pin that. Then we go to episode 2. Heat. In the world, real world wrestling superstars and storylines, plus Vince's reputation, attracts scandal and scrutiny in the media. A new competitor rises up. Heat. We talking about Monday Night Heat Wars, Monday Nitro. All of this is going on. It's, Vince also is having scandal on scandal. You got the steroid situation with the guys taking steroids, Hulk Hogan and him was having their issues. We had a whole history lesson on Hulk Hogan and basically the same old shit that you already know about. Vince McMahon's views on why some of the things happen, he don't fucking know. It's all about the business. That's the going theme. When Vince McMahon is asked about something, it's all about the business. Well, I don't remember. Well, did I do that? It's about the business. I no heart, no harm, no foul. It was all business. That's the running thing. Then we got episode 3, Screw Job. You can take a guess what this is about. A whole episode of Bret Hart. Fucking, oh my goodness. Triple H was on there and Shawn Michaels. All of them look washed. Okay? Going through the motions of the Montreal screw job for the 400,000th kabillion fucking time. Okay? If there's more to the story at this point, I do not give a fuck. What I understand is it was already understood that Bret Hart was going to WCW. Vince said to him, listen, I can't pay you. Go to WCW, use your contract with me for leverage, go get that money. But I need my title back because you're going to WCW. This was already understood. If that is what was going on, I don't understand why this had to be such a hard thing for Bret to do. Why was it difficult? Because Bret Hart did not like Shawn Michaels and Shawn was a dick. Shawn even said in his old Shawn said, yes, I was a dick. I was going through a lot. I was on drugs. I was fucked all the way up. We already know Shawn Michaels' history. Okay? So because of that, Bret Hart did not want to drop the title to Shawn Michaels. What he wanted was a fuck finish, which I don't understand because you can't take the title to WCW. Drop the fucking title and go about your business. Then it was in Canada and it was this whole big thing. We already know what happened. Vince threw the bell. He didn't tap out. He spit on Vince. Vince went to the back. Everybody knew. Triple H bold-faced lied to Bret Hart's wife. If you watch the documentary, Bret Hart's documentary from years ago, the wife basically put a hex on Triple H and said, you lying, all this shit gonna come back to your big nose ass. And it technically did. Triple H basically was like, yeah, we lied. Like, he told us to lie and we lied. It was like, whatever. I'm the one that told Vince McMahon this shit. You gotta do what you gotta do. It's about the business. Get that title. And that's Vince McMahon was like, alright, cool. I was gonna do it anyway, but, alright. And that's what they did. Bret Hart knocked the cold fuck out of Vince McMahon, gave him a concussion. He walking around a black eye. That is that. What did we learn? Nothing. Season 1, episode 4, Attitude. What are we talking about? The Monday Night Wars is in motion. A new era begins. Vince McMahon takes on the bold new persona and the programming into risque territory. We are talking about the Attitude Era, guys. What Attitude Era lasted 3 years. That's it. But the way wrestling fans talk about it, you would think it lasted for 10 years. It was 3 years of crash TV. I will agree. Yes, you had all those talk shows. Jenny Jones, Jerry Springer, Donahue. Motherfuckers was getting beat up all on TV. It was just anything goes, especially daytime television. For daytime television to be for like the quote-unquote housewives or the moms at home with the stories and stuff and soap operas, it was some wild shit on them TVs. Let me tell you, because I was sitting right there watching it. Oprah, all the motherfuckers, what's his name, Geraldo, all of them was in on it, getting all into that shit. My first introduction for Crash TV, and y'all might not remember this, it was 9 Broadcast Plaza. And that turned into the Morton Downey Jr. show. Okay, now I'm dating myself. And that was my first introduction to trash TV. Because that ended up, I forgot who took Morton Downey Jr.'s over. I want to say it was Donahue, but Morton Downey Jr. was the pioneer of crash TV. Alright, anyway. That's basically what they was talking about. How the women ended up being dogged out. Vince McMahon didn't give a fuck about what was going on. He used his children to get all into it. Everything was just, I got to do whatever WCW's doing, we're going to do it 10 times worse and make it even more outrageous. So if WCW was showing dicks, they going to show the dicks and peel it like a banana live on TV and let the blood come out. That's where he was at, okay? Didn't nobody think about what was going on, how that happened, whoop de whoop de whoop. Didn't nobody care about none of that shit. And quiet as is kept. People outside of the wrestling world did not like what was going on with Vince McMahon. On top of all his scandals and stuff, you got people dying left and right. You got women doing terrible shit, mud wrestling in matches, and all he can say is, "That's not me. That's not me. That's a part of me. I got 3 brains. I got one brain talking to me and another brain talking to me, and then I got a third brain. And, I've been listening and hearing these voices for years, and there's just really nothing I could do but just listen to it." So I don't know if he's a fucking schizophrenic or what. He's basically telling us he has a mental problem, but he's been dealing with it all this time. Why fix it? That's really it on that attitude. The family business. Vince brings his family into the fold and attempts to push the envelope on air and beyond the ring. A momentous merger changes the wrestling landscape. That's about it. The family, Stephanie, Linda, and Shane. What did I learn? Shane McMahon wanted his father to tell him he loved him. Why did I tell you to hold a pin in Vince McMahon wanting his father to tell him he loved him? Vince McMahon essentially continued the cycle of psychological abuse. You probably like, oh, she overdoing it. No. Shane McMahon was doing all that wild shit just so he could get a pat on the fucking back and his daddy could love him. That is it. And Vince McMahon agreed. And Shane was like, he finally gave me a hug. After he landed on his head twice, after he jumped off of all kinds of shit, almost died, his father finally gave him a hug and told him he loved him. That's all Shane wanted. Yes, Shane wanted to show his father he can run the business and even take over WWE. So they talked about the UFC thing. Shane pitched to Vince to buy the UFC, let him have it, run it, and then, they'll make money. Vince was like, absolutely not. I'm in sports entertainment. I'm not in the, that combat business. But if you want it, you buy it. But Vince knew that Shane didn't have no money, and it wasn't going to happen. Shane was just like, all right. It was talked about they butt heads a lot. Vince pointed out that Shane was more conservative of him. Shane didn't like none of those storylines with his mama. He thought they was a little bit too close to the brow. He asked him, is this like real? Like, what the fuck are you doing? When him and Trish Stratus is licking each other in the mouth and Trish Stratus drugged up Linda, had in the wheelchair. Everything was just too much for Shane. It culminated to a big wrestling match where he got to beat Vince up and stand up for his mama. Everything is always glossed over. Oh, okay, I get it. That's essentially what the family business was. Linda was on board with the Trish Stratus stuff, told her to kiss on the head because it looked good. The whole point, Linda said, the whole point is to elicit an emotional response from the audience by any means necessary. Okay, Linda. Last episode 6, the finish. After tragedy draws attention to wrestling injuries, WWE refocuses on safety and expansion. Vince retires after unsettling allegations. What are we talking about? We talked about Chris Benoit and his whole thing. And there was a wrestler, Zawinski, who was already a Harvard graduate, neuroscience, wanted to get deeper into why Chris Benoit behaved the way he behaved. People were blaming Vince, saying, well, this the steroids, and you let them do steroids. And Vince was like, steroids don't do that. Like, the man's crazy. Like, what the fuck you want me to do? I didn't tell them people to take the steroids. So CTE was what the neurosurgeon, a former wrestler, came up with. We now know, removed from then, now that CTE is a real thing. CTE is something, it's a degenerative brain injury close to something like Alzheimer's or dementia, if you take too many hits to the head, your brain essentially begins to atrophy or becomes damaged, and it rots in your skull. It the symptoms is aggression, impulse control, lack of, like, everything negative you could think of is amplified when somebody has CTE. Okay. This is what the wrestler said. Chris Benoit got his brain from his dad. Looked at his brain. He said, no doubt, it's CTE. Then this is the part that was crazy, because Stone Cold sitting his stupid ass up there talking about, I just got one concussion. They showed Stone Cold get his whole neck broke while he talking about, I ain't down with the CTE. I ain't down with that. Then you got the Undertaker talking about, well, you know, the business, but I can barely walk. I can't even get up in the morning sometimes, you know, and I got hit in the head a lot. So I understood about the CTE. So many contradictions in this documentary. My goodness. Okay? And that's it. Then they went into the Janelle Grant stuff. I have a podcast section dedicated to reading the entire case, the entire deposition. If you want to hear the salaciousness, the feces, the nasty text messages, the dildos, and all that, it's right there for you. That's really it. I didn't learn shit. I didn't learn nothing new. I learned that Vince is obsessed with the business. I learned that Vince McMahon, the character, Mr. McMahon, is Vince McMahon. The only person that thinks that the character is a character is Vince McMahon. Okay? Vince McMahon victimizes himself. Vince McMahon understands that when it's time to soften up the crowd and play the victim, he knows how to turn that shit on. Vince McMahon will babyface the fuck out of you. Okay? I learned that he was the abuse in his background. He basically, whatever his actual dad did to him with the lack of emotional response, he did with Shane. What else I learned? A lot of stuff was glossed over. No conversation about China. No conversation about Macho Man. He was very nonchalant about Owens, what's his name? Owen Hart dying in the ring, and you can see the blood splatter. He still wanted the guys to go wrestle, and everybody was visibly shaking. No conversation about Eddie Guerrero. One conversation about Chris Benoit, and he was just like, I have absolutely nothing to do with that. I don't give a fuck. But what came from that was the protocol has changed. Okay. What else did they talk about? Ashley Massaro came up in the end, and how he humiliated her. Vince McMahon has a tendency to humiliate his talent. When they don't do what he wants, he'll get them back when it's time to tape. We've all seen it. He did it to John Moxley. He did it to Roman Reigns. He did it to Trish Stratus. He did it to his own daughter. One thing they said, and I just was like, wow. So Stephanie McMahon was getting married to Triple H, and Vince pitched that they should put the marriage on pay-per-view. Stephanie said absolutely not. So 6 days before their wedding, he scheduled her in a match with him where he beat her ass up. And Linda was at ringside like, you better not bruise her because she got to get married in 6 days. I'm sitting there like, are you fucking kidding? Then y'all, don't nobody see how this man built his own work universe where he gets adulation from the audience and essentially wielded his own will like Skeletor in the castle of Grayskull and He-Man? Like, everybody's just like, well, you know, it's the business. Another thing, didn't nobody answer no questions. They said, what's Vince's legacy? Well, I don't know about that. Well, I don't John Cena. Well, I don't want you asking me that. Booker T. Well, I don't know. Fucking Undertaker. Well, I don't know. Tony Atlas. He a booker. He a damn good booker. That's his legacy. He said you can't take that from him. Outside of all that terrible shit, yes, He is a pivotal part of history. You can't take it from him. That is the answer. Why the fuck everybody else couldn't answer that? Because they are loyal to this man and they don't want to say anything crazy. There was a part where Bruce Pritchard showed up and they asked him, how do you think about some of the episodes? Well, I think it was a hit piece. I think it's terrible. I don't think it was human enough. I don't think y'all did enough. Y'all just showed that he was a dickhead. Well, I'm going to tell you, my wife had cancer and Vince made sure she got the best health care in the world, and 24 years later she's still living. Okay, can two things not exist at once? Can the sun be in the sky with clouds at the same time? So Vince can be nice and be a dick too. Like, why is that not a thing? It's just a lot of stuff that's been regurgitated, rehashed. They could have did this documentary in 2 hours. And if you put all of Vince McMahon's clips together, it would literally be a 30-minute show. He barely gave you anything. Funny thing, Bruce Pritchard felt that it was a hit piece. The first thing Vince McMahon said in this documentary was, I'm not going to give you everything. I'm going to give you a little something. Oh, man, I got so many stories, some wild shit. But I ain't going to tell you nothing about that. I'm going to let you see what I want you to see. My own kids don't know me. That's what everybody was saying in the first episode. I barely know my dad. Oh, my dad? I don't know. He only likes to see what he wants. Everybody's like, I don't know Vince. I don't know who from a can of paint. But I do know that he loved the business. That's it. I mean, there's really nothing else to say. If you want to watch it, you can, but just know you're not learning anything new. No one is really saying anything, and it is what it is. I think it was a waste of time. I think it was hyped up on purpose so we could run our asses over there and give Netflix some clicks. I don't fucking know, but this was a womp 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 womp. Don't bother. If you don't have to, don't do it. But if you want to because you're curious, go ahead. But you're not going to learn anything. So if you made it this far, hit me in the comments. Tell me what you think.